Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Molineux, Norwich City. Of course, in action today, their final away game of what has been a torrid Premier League season. I'm going to jump straight into it and read you the team news, and then Paddy will be joining me shortly to discuss the various lines that are within that. So Norwich have switched formation. They line up with a back three, back five, depending on how you view it. So it's this is the Norwich City lineup. Angus Gunn in goal, Byram, Hanley and Gibson at the back three, Aaron's right wing back, Yanulis left wing back, Norman and Gilmore the midfield two, with Molineux ahead of them, with Dowell and Pukki the strike partnership as this looks in front of me here. Their subs bench: Tim Krul, Lucas Rook, Milo Rashica, thank you, Milo Rashica, Jacob Sorensen, Christos Solis, Brandon Williams, Jonathan Tompkinson, Tony Springer and John Rowe. So change of formation and a change of personnel for Dean Smith as well. That's 3 changes for Norwich City. Wolves line up like this. John Ruddy does get a start in what's expected to be his final game for Wolverhampton Wanderers today. They've got Ait Nuri, Neto, Ruben Neves, Raul Jimenez, Willy Bolly, Connor Cody, Johnny Toti, Juan Chan and João Moutinho is their side. Their subs bench: Jose Sarr, Hoover, Marcel, Podence, Trincao, Silva, Cinquino and Leander Dendonka as well. So they haven't named their full available substitutes available to them rather. And we're just watching John Ruddy emerge today. Maybe quite pertinent really that his final game in a Wolves goalkeeping shirt is expected to come against Norwich this afternoon. Paddy joins me. Paddy, let's start with the Norwich formation then. It's a change of shape from Dean Smith. He's essentially matching Wolves up. We know that they play the three at the back quite regularly. How do you expect that to work? I suppose it's a repeat for Ben Gibson. It's an opportunity for Sam Byram to continue the work he's been doing there in recent weeks. But are you surprised by the formation change from Dean Smith this afternoon?
Not so much, Connor. No, I mean maybe it's a look at next season, what that could look like in terms of the shape. More surprised to see Matthias Norman actually there, because the indications we were getting that might be it in terms of his involvement as a Norwich City loan player. So I think that thigh issue was what was reported. Obviously not proven to be season-ending in the same way it was for Ozanka back. So that's an interesting one with Billy Gilmore, 2 more loan players. As I wrote after the Leicester game, I don't see the point of this now at all. Playing any of those loan players, what are we going to learn? And if so, how's it going to benefit Norwich moving into next season? Dean Smith would counter that they need, certainly positivity in terms of performance and ideally a result or two. You don't really want to limp into the end of the season. I think it'd be if they lost today and Tottenham 7 straight defeats, 4 games as it stands without a goal as well. So I can see a balance he's trying to strike, but I'm looking down the bench. You've got Springer, you've got Rowe, even Rashica and Jolis, who there may be a question mark about their continued presence here beyond the end of this season. But certainly you've got your own players. So defensively, I think that's an interesting one to look at. And yes, it might be in the short term to maybe match up what Wolves will look to do in this game. But if it was to work and you've got a Hanley, Byram, Gibson combination, of course, Andrew Bama-Daly would be in the conversation clearly for next season, but it might just give him some food for thought moving forward. And again, another opportunity for Kieran Dowell. That's the other thing that catches my eye. He's had to dip out for the last 2 or 3 games, having suggested that maybe he was just carving out a niche for himself in this Dean Smith side. Dean Smith then decided to go with maybe Lise Malou in that role. We've seen Springer in the last game or so, Rashica as well. But today, in this shape, clearly you would imagine Dowell is the one who's got to try and make that link to Pukki as well. So that's an interesting facet for what comes next, maybe. But also, I guess it is those, as you say, Connor, defensive 3, because that is quite a departure from how Dean Smith more often than not has gone about his setups. So, is it about today's game? Yes. Could it also be about moving into the new season? Potentially. So, yeah, that's an intriguing development. Angus Gunn instead of Tim Krul. No, I think we all expected that. Even though the second half didn't quite get a plan at Leicester, I think prior to the interval, he underlined that, he's worth looking at in a larger sample with a view to next season for me.
Yes, and particularly interesting that those wide options that you mentioned are on the bench. I think if you'd have told Norwich City fans at the start of the season when they were watching Milo Rashica and Christos Solis roll into the building for significant transfer fees from a Norwich perspective, that they would end the campaign on the bench, I think a lot of them would maybe wonder what has gone wrong. And the answer to that is plenty, which we could sit here and dissect. But it's interesting what you've said before. We've seen Smith play it with a three at the back before. They did it at Spurs and did it quite well as well, creating a lot of chances that afternoon. They've done it subsequently as well against, I think it was Chelsea in the first half, and it didn't work necessarily as well. Often when you get 2-3 at the backs against each other, they can cancel themselves out a little bit. I think that's kind of the way it tends to go. But it's interesting that maybe you feel this is a view to next season, as I suppose everything needs to be. But at the same time, how damning is it on those wide options that Milo Rashica, Christos Solis is of this world, that penultimate day of the season they find themselves on the bench with a Norwich City formation that doesn't include wingers, given how we know they recruited to sign those players specifically?
How damning, very damning, Connor. Let's be honest about it. You know, Rashica has had more game time, but has flattered to deceive. And there's a player there, no doubt about it, both his reputation when he came to England and what he'd done in the Bundesliga with Werder Bremen. And at phases of the season, you just felt he's just getting there. And then for whatever reason, he's had his injury issues and he's slipped back again and then come again with a little burst, and it just hasn't happened. And maybe, you know, there's plenty of examples of players and clubs not quite being the right fit at the right time, but maybe that's where we are with him. And Solis, even more disappointing, given he arrived with quite a lot of fanfare and a very similar transfer fee. And Dean Smith said it. He said it on Friday to us when he kind of, for the first time really, publicly at least, talked about we need to, again, we don't want to turn this into a recruitment sort of beating them around the head with, but they essentially need to rectify what they didn't last summer, and that's find an Emi Buendia style replacement. I'm not saying find an Emi Buendia because there's not too many of them about for what Norwich will be able to pay this summer. But he went on to say in that explanation of, we need that creative in the 10, that pockets with good vision, good technical ability, can link obviously to Pukki primarily, you would think. But he also caveated that by saying that they have plenty of wide players and they haven't really measured up in terms of goals, in terms of assists. He said they've been made aware of that. He's obviously spoken to these characters about that. They are working with them on that. But where it matters out here in the Premier League environment, it's just not worked. So, I mean, if you're asking me, do I think Rashica and Solis will both be here next season? I wouldn't put too many pounds on that, pounds, euros, whatever currency you want to deal in. I think that the dial is turning on those two, and as a result, what we're left with today is, as you say, it's kind of your width in this system is Giannoulis, is Aarons. And what I would say is, I think we could probably definitively say now, Dimi Giannoulis is better going forward than he is tracking back the other way defensively. And with the added protection of a Gibson on that left-hand side, that should afford him the licence to get forward, get high, get wide, and showcase what he's all about. And obviously Max, we know that's in his game as well. So, it is a bit of an indictment, but I don't think Norwich will lack for width if they obviously get the other elements of the game, because they've got two very attack-minded full-backs / wing-backs.
Yeah, we've obviously hosted one of these ahead of every single game this season. I'm just looking to my left, and usually if anyone's familiar with Molineux, the away fans tend to be situated kind of opposite where we're sat now in the lower tier. Norwich fans are actually behind the goal to our left in the upper tier. It's certainly a smaller allocation than they had for the FA Cup tie here in January, wasn't it? You can see there just where that is on Paddy's screen. There's going to be people today maybe questioning why they have made the trip. Let's be honest about it, given what they've seen this season, given the form that Norwich City are in, because for all that we talk about systems and different options, certainly in the last few games, if Norwich City can see the goal, they tend to collapse quite dramatically. Do you see a better structure to this side and the way that Dean Smith has laid it out to suggest that maybe they can avoid that kind of England test style collapse in the same way that they've had in recent games?
Well, what I would also add to that equation is Wolves' lack of goals. Dean Smith referenced it on Friday when he said really that's probably the factor that has prevented them really getting into that top four, he even said, but certainly the top six discussion. And you look at where they are, they still can finish in the top eight, and they haven't won a game in the last 5 in the Premier League. So they do struggle to score goals. I think Adam, our colleague on the drive up, said Raul Jimenez is their top scorer, and he's got 6. And you draw a parallel with Timu Pukki. So that tells you they struggle to score goals. Of course, I'm talking this up in the manner that Wolves haven't the firepower to score against Norwich. So if this goes very badly, then you can remind me of this at the final whistle. But yeah, you would hope it's a combination of maybe Wolves don't have that really sharp, clinical attacking edge on the basis of what we've seen from them this season, particularly the 2 games against Norwich, League and Cup, failed to score. There's not too many sides Norwich have managed to shut out once, let alone twice this season at Premier League level. But also, yeah, I mean, you would think a Gibson and a Hanley, in terms of their experience, that should aid Norwich's ability to resist if, you know, you get a similar type of phase in the game, which you would expect to what we got midweek, where, you know, they competed on level terms with Leicester for 45, 50 minutes. Then Leicester hit the accelerator. Jamie Vardy shows us what he's all about, and Norwich just crumble. And as Dean Smith said, you know, let's not get into talk about culture and mentality again, but in the games where they're in the game and they concede, certainly in the second part of this season, probably all season if we're honest, they don't seem able to resist. You know, it's all well and good, as Dean Smith mapped out. You're 2-0 down to Chelsea at Carrow Road, half-time, the game's gone, it's Chelsea. Just go out and almost play with a freedom. You know, what have you got to lose? You've lost the game. And Norwich had a real good go at Chelsea. Likewise, United at Old Trafford, they were 2-0 down, got it back to 2-2, lost the game. But, okay, I'm not bracketing this Manchester United with Chelsea, but they have very, very good individual players. Yet Norwich were able to come back. Why can't they do it against the Brentford? Why can't they do it against the Leeds? Et al. It is a mentality issue, ultimately. And we'll see today. We'll see today if Wolves get their noses in front. This crowd get up. Their final home game. You've got John Ruddy probably playing his last game for Wolves at Molineux. I'm looking down their lineup. Moutinho, is he playing, Connor? Yeah, he's there. So I think it's his final home game as well. There's a lot of reasons why this Wolves team would want to put on a performance today. And Norwich will have to resist. And we'll see if they've got more of a backbone to them than they've shown hitherto too often under Dean Smith and Daniel Farke, let's be honest.
Yeah, I mean, let's try. Difficult at the moment, admittedly, but let's try and end with a bit of a positive slant on this game. Norwich City have played Wolves twice this season and haven't lost, and they haven't conceded a goal, have they, either? So maybe if we're trying to look for some little straw to cling on to, then maybe we can point at that being one, that this Wolves side haven't scored against Norwich City. They're one of very few teams to do so. And it feels like, at least, Norwich City are kind of well equipped to face this Wolves lineup and how they kind of play out. Although, admittedly, that FA Cup game at the start of the year, I don't think Ruben Neves played in that, for example. It was a watered down Wolves team. So maybe there's an argument to say, with a strong lineup today, a more Premier League lineup, if you want to label it like this, it does make it look a little bit more tough for Norwich City. How do you see it going today, Pat?
Really, really difficult for Norwich-related reasons and Wolves-related reasons. We've mapped them out in this broadcast to forecast anything other than a Wolves win, ultimately. What have we got to cling to suggest it would be different, other than, as you positively pointed out, Connor, Norwich have played Wolves twice this season. Should have won at Carrow Road very early in Dean Smith's tenure. They were excellent that day. Wolves were initially starting very well. I remember the game's coming back to me now. Neves and Moutinho were pulling the strings. I think Smith said at half-time he'd asked his midfield 3 as it was that day. I think it was Norman McLean and Billy Gilmore to get a bit closer to them. They did that successfully, and then it was only one team in it in that second half. And they won here in the Cup. Kenny McLean header, Billy Gilmore free kick. So they have those memories, both in terms of keeping Wolves out and a win in the Cup and a point in the league. But you just hope that we saw it for 45, 50 minutes against Leicester, and it was okay. Yeah, I mean, Leicester had plenty of chances. Don't get me wrong. Angus Gunn had to make some excellent saves, but Norwich carried a threat on the counter. There was as Dean Smith said Friday, there was a bravery, a willingness to sort of engage and try and break through Leicester's press. But we saw it for 50 minutes, and then the game ran away from them in the space of, I think they scored 2 in about 10 minutes and then added a third through Maddison. You'd like to think we're not here again at the final whistle, and it's, they played well for X, then the game ran away from them. Because if that's the case and it's a mirror image of the midweek game, the same questions persist, and Dean Smith has to answer the same questions. And the small matter of a Champions League chasing Tottenham at Carrow Road next weekend, that is by no manner of means an easy way to bid farewell to this league. So of the two opportunities, I think this is probably going to be the better one for them to get a point or maybe 3. So, you can only hope that there's players in that 11 and the ones who come on, if they want to be part of this now, moving forward under Dean Smith, they show it. And if collectively enough of them show it, there may be a result for them. But, it's very hard to forecast anything other than a Wolves win. Connor, yourself?
Yeah, I'm with you, really. I'm really struggling to see how this Norwich team, scores a goal, but maybe more personally keeps Wolves out. I think they've got the quality in their lineup and on the bench, quite frankly, for that matter. The fact they've rested Podence, Trincao, Silva, all very good attacking players and capable of producing moments within games that can unlock defences. I'm intrigued to see how the 3 at the back pans out. I guess that's maybe the only thing. If Norwich City absolutely nail that system and it maybe transpires in the way that it can do with 2-3 at the backs, where the two teams cancel each other out, then I think there is a possibility for them to get maybe a point, if not more, here today. We shall see. Molineux isn't typically a very happy hunting ground for Norwich, so yeah, I guess all of that in a roundabout way points me to maybe a Wolves victory, I'm afraid, but we shall see. Of course, we'll bring you all of the live updates from Molineux, Norwich City's final away game of the season. Thank goodness for that, quite frankly. I'll be on the live blog this afternoon to bring you updates. We'll have Dean Smith's reaction as well as all the usual stuff that we produce for you. Thank you very much for watching. Hopefully we're left talking about a Norwich City win come the full time whistle, and we'll see you again very soon.